Mandy's vilification in First Marriage is a page out of the Big Bang Theory's worst trope book. If there's one thing the Big Bang Theory perfected over its 12-season run, it was its knack for recycling sitcom tropes until they became almost painfully predictable. Among the series' most glaring pitfalls was its treatment of romantic relationships, particularly how women were vilified in their former partnerships to make way for the main cast's narrative arcs. Mandy, Leonard's brief first love, is a textbook example. Her portrayal reads like a page ripped directly from the show's worst trope manual, and the consequences are as cringeworthy as they are predictable. To understand the depth of Mandy's vilification, we have to revisit the infamous First Marriage storyline. While Leonard's past relationships were often fodder for awkward humor, Mandy's role was uniquely undermined by the writer's insistence on making her a cautionary tale rather than a fully realized character. From the outset, the narrative frames her as the archetypal crazy ex, a one-dimensional antagonist designed solely to highlight Leonard's subsequent desirability and Sheldon-compatible nerdy charm. The trope itself isn't subtle. Mandy is presented through the lens of Leonard's discomfort, often exaggerated for comedic effect. Her supposed flaws, clinginess, overbearing tendencies, and a certain emotional volatility aren't explored with nuance. Instead, they are amplified in a way that implicitly suggests her downfall is deserved. In a show that often prides itself on intellectualism and subtle character work, this is particularly ironic. The writers, so adept at weaving scientific jargon into witty banter, failed to extend that same complexity to the women around Leonard, instead defaulting to a sitcom shorthand. She's bad because she's ex-wife material, end of story. What makes this treatment frustrating isn't just the superficiality of the character, it's the way it reinforces a long-standing cultural trope in television. The vilification of women post-breakup isn't unique to the Big Bang Theory, but the series often leans into it without critique. Mandy's story mirrors countless sitcoms before it. The former partner is framed as irrational, over-emotional, or otherwise problematic, thereby implicitly absolving the male lead of responsibility. For Leonard, Mandy's supposed faults become the narrative mechanism that makes him seem sympathetic and relatable, while simultaneously painting her as the villain for having a life outside his current romantic interest. Consider the episodes in which Mandy appears, or, more accurately, the way the show references her. Her presence is rarely felt as a fully formed character. Instead, she exists as a catalyst for Leonard's insecurities and neuroses. The humor arises not from her perspective or actions in a holistic sense, but from how she inconveniences or confounds Leonard and, by extension, the audience. This imbalance is subtle enough that casual viewers might not notice, yet it's symptomatic of a broader issue in sitcom storytelling: the tendency to dehumanize female characters who don't fit neatly into the male protagonist's romantic trajectory. Another layer to Mandy's vilification lies in the implicit moral framing. By portraying her as irrationally jealous, emotionally unstable, or overly demanding, the show signals to the audience that Leonard's relief in leaving her is justified. This moral framing is a classic sitcom tool. The ex-girlfriend must be unlikable so the current relationship can shine. In Mandy's case, the trope is executed with an almost mechanical precision. She is the foil against which Leonard's future partners are measured. Penny, Bernadette, and Amy are elevated not through intrinsic character development alone, but also through the lens of contrast. Mandy's flaws make Leonard's new relationships look balanced, loving, and logically preferable. The consequence of this storytelling choice is a troubling one. Mandy is not allowed to exist as a complex human being with her own motivations or vulnerabilities. Her role is solely functional, to highlight Leonard's growth, or, more cynically, to provide comedic fodder at her expense. This is compounded by the show's audience-friendly framing. We, the viewers, are invited to laugh at Mandy's mistakes, reinforcing her status as the other in Leonard's romantic history. In doing so, the show perpetuates a subtle, but culturally significant, message. Women who are incompatible with the male lead are inherently flawed, irrational, or worthy of ridicule. It's worth noting that the trope Mandy embodies is not inherently unfunny. Many sitcoms derive humor from ex-relationships and awkward romantic entanglements. The problem lies in execution, specifically the lack of balance and humanity. Mandy could have been written with depth, humor, and even sympathy, offering a richer comedic experience without reducing her to a caricature. Instead, she is trapped in the villainous ex archetype, a narrative choice that feels both lazy and dated, especially in a show otherwise lauded for clever dialogue and nerdy wit. The vilification also speaks to a larger inconsistency in the Big Bang Theory's treatment of women. When the show invests in characters like Amy Farrah Fowler, it achieves complexity and relatability. Amy is neurotic, awkward, and deeply flawed, yet she is portrayed with empathy and a sense of agency. Mandy, by contrast, is stripped of nuance. Her flaws are exaggerated, her voice marginalized, and her existence reduced to a punchline. The contrast is striking, highlighting the show's selective approach to female characterization. Women who become long-term, audience-friendly partners are granted depth, while those who are part of Leonard's past are vilified for narrative convenience. Interestingly, the Mandy trope also intersects with the show's nerd-centric humor. Leonard is a quintessential geek, socially awkward, and intellectually gifted, and the show often frames his romantic misadventures through this lens. Mandy's flaws are thus amplified not only to vilify her, but also to underscore Leonard's superiority as a partner. He is the rational, science-minded hero who escapes the irrationality of his former spouse. This narrative framing reinforces a subtle hierarchy. Women who cannot match the male protagonist's intellectual or social ideals are inherently problematic. It's a trope that, while designed for laughs, carries a latent moral judgment. Beyond the show's internal logic, Mandy's portrayal reflects broader societal patterns. Sitcoms have historically used female vilification as a comedic tool, particularly in male-led series. The crazy ex trope is familiar, comfortable, and instantly recognizable, but also reductive. Mandy's storyline is a microcosm of this pattern. She is not a person with agency, but a symbol of male exoneration, a narrative device to make Leonard look better by comparison. In 2025, when conversations about representation and gender in media are more nuanced than ever, this kind of storytelling feels particularly antiquated. What makes the trope even more frustrating is that the Big Bang Theory has the tools to avoid it. The show frequently explores social awkwardness, miscommunication, and emotional nuance, especially through characters like Sheldon, Howard, and Raj. These narrative strengths could have been applied to Mandy, offering a layered portrayal rather than a one-dimensional caricature. For instance, instead of presenting her as irrational or obsessive, the writers could have depicted her actions as the result of miscommunication, unmet expectations, or genuine hurt, classic sitcom territory that is both funny and empathetic. By choosing vilification over complexity, the show missed an opportunity for richer storytelling. Moreover, the vilification of Mandy has a ripple effect on the audience's perception of Leonard. By framing Mandy as the problem in the first marriage, the show positions Leonard as the perpetual victim in his romantic life, someone whose flaws are mitigated by the missteps of his partners. While Leonard is certainly neurotic, awkward, and imperfect, the storytelling suggests that his failures in love are largely circumstantial, caused by the women who fail to meet his needs. Mandy's narrative becomes a tool of absolution for him, a mechanism that subtly excuses his shortcomings and amplifies the humor at her expense. The cringe factor of Mandy's vilification is